Hello, YouTubers. The serious things in the world, and there is hyper evidential that we could use simultaneously and sequentially. While sequentially has that simultaneous value, and it's using black pupils / whites of eyes. It's using where and how nature is about difference, how we have the different colorized, same colorized at the same time, how there are exceptions, how exception nature works, how even the bugs, and so in other words, how when they have commerce, there are problems with commerce with the human value / value progression system. And the / part is where coupled as equal to being a volume, even though an identity of relationship to something is not a volume. Its identity of relationship to itself, the hyper simultaneous, the identity of hyperrelativity, if you will, that which we discern, being how the other species bodies didn't invent those quality aspects in nature's of ways they are distinctly, non-distinctly though, also, and simultaneous with ourselves and with those like two eyes, even the bugs. There's an identity of hyper simultaneous nature. All exception nature are in demonstration of the same thing, and where and how. It is equally. It's the extent of itself we could discern individually, grouped, or together, simultaneous with subjects. See, languages are about subjects, and predicate values simultaneously. They could be just about the predicate value as the subject. That's why a verb, one word, you could make a one word sentence with a verb. Wrong, play, but you can't with a subject. Hat. It's not a complete subject. A complete sentence. This is nature's identity, its identity relationship to itself and the value of that. The exception is the exception nature with other languages are about the same thing, but plus additionally how it is hyper additional nature. How it uses difference the same ways we do, but then hyper additionally as itself, as that portion that we can't discern, but with proper appreciation of individually, not leaving out the smallest finite detail, no. Like with emotions. See, everyone reacts too late. You guys, you speak. You guys came through schools A through Z, and or the difference of that used worse and exceptions. The nature of the debate regarding such. You guys, for example, before the Constitutional Convention, as value of any subject in there, and since you guys left out the value of how and why. James Madison, with their plan, they had to counter extort the other, and through the help of George positions, where everyone was already enslaved, fact, true nature enslaved, sickly distinctly by that torture, extortion, fact, true nature slavery method, sickly distinctly because to use functionally how sickly non distinctly was left out or that body was sensed, even if that body was a majority, black pupils / whites of eyes. In other words, our founders left us to show too how the military stayed criminally foreign influence, north and south, fake sides per itself. So they were forced to show how they were fake sides, and simultaneously forcing them to show honestly about the extortion of George Washington, about the torture of him, of James Madison simultaneously, how everyone had to lie about their motives leading up to and through the process of dropping off, getting us told to have innumerable rights, too many to list, and getting the Constitution unabridged. And that involves honesty for the torture method, extortion, slavery method, involved the value nature systems. And it was sustained to keep also the difference of when and how. Already before the and so now they had to be three branches of government. And so this would have been self-correcting. Per nature would have shown a quality of factory nature. The suburbs were designed before our founders were born, tactically denatured as a landscape theater. As nature itself shows, it can't even hold worms anymore. Barely has worms anymore. We took all the food away from the earth. Now the birds. So nature communicates through positive or negative value nature progressions, but simultaneously with use of a special difference. Earth's a special difference. We could be systems other, but it will just force our value as Earths, but no longer like it's without criminal foreign influences, especially differentially, if legalized or not. Countries A through Z have collusions with uses of interreligious spots too. Tactically delusions raw, and simultaneously criminally and foreign influence factory nature quality aspects and nature regarding subject treatments of all books. Therefore, the religious books, beginning of the Old Testament, beginning of the Quran, they both have parts where they say the only thing that matters is right here. And they qualify it their own ways. The beginning of the Old Testament, the beginning of the Quran, the beginning of the Old Testament says only that someone has to know right here where the people of the sciences come together. Where the names of the people of the sciences will come together. Because the sciences share an identity, like things individually grouped and together. The groupings are to show exception nature that appear to be in demonstration of other, like the species volume is. They're really in demonstration of the same thing. Slash S, not just the hyper simultaneous being the identity of hyperrelativity, but of its self, also not juxtaposed in a portion in any way. Juxtaposing, where the value of any identity of relationship to itself is its identity of relationship to itself. Again, if it is negative to itself, that is relative simultaneously to a special difference. A special difference is about relativity slash hyperrelativity, and the contemplated value of that. Why? It's why you question. So you guys have been employed to entertain motives narratives too, where motives are irrelevant. You know, they're not relative. But this breaching method took possession of the nature of debate itself, making self-valued roles with quality aspects and nature of factory nature as criminal insidiousness nature slash hyper criminal insidiousness nature, and all that being and having been used remotely, where and how we are syntactically manifest relative to these questions and their answers properly. Forget Black pupils. Forget how long they've left this out. CNN, I just saw on the news this morning, I heard real fast. One of the counters syntactically, God forbid any one other species body. It's too long. The people that left out the value of how the breaching method designed the suburbs from here to Russia to Ukraine. Now, Russia and America have nuclear weapons and the means to traverse the earth. And so, in other words, and they're speaking for sophistication all this time, but the suburbs were designed before our founders were born. Everyone was trained to use people's names or blame. Specifically, nobody even went right to leave out the breaching method that had already been affected, consolidated self-value rules, no one even realizing names A through Z from before modern religious messengers who obviously realized the sciences have been used to bridge. The sciences became criminally foreign influence. Uses of names A through Z of the human volume science, now other volume sciences, and regarding positive and negative. Not just as criminal insidiousness, negative. Criminal insidiousness nature is positive, negative, and collusion to keep not just the breaching method from being discerned, screened, maintained. Functional, blamed on other things, others ourselves, nature's demonstrations of it too, the breaching method. What was slavery about? If you let what's true always, not denying the slightest exception. Not trying to value what actually was itself as nature that actually came first. You're going to value the needs by reason, to discern. Nature showing us the only increasing value of the names of indigenous populations individually grouped and together. And the same thing within those names, like different types of tribes. Different tribes, just individually grouped together, sickly, distinctly, they were separated through our own, who had already been separated from the short words and from the proper protraction of short words regarding history, regarding what to convict. Regarding what to theorize, let alone to convict. All treatments of words, data, research, evidence. They are with and as nature, forcing quality of debate with, forcing things pretended real that are not legitimate. They've been putting fake things on the databases through time. More people had roles with the principal child abuser of Wethersfield campuses, from New Britain's campuses, Hartford campuses, families next to them. Forgiveness is to show how foreign bodies motivated them to such. Good people to stay evil. And where and how. For example, there's all these evidences recorded of how other things, others ourselves, are blamed for the real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. For example, in the suburbs, let alone the cities. And these are increasingly the difference of the guilt of the intelligence, and how and with that too, the difference of them or the interbranch part of that, or the family members of them or the other intelligence. Like Sandy Hook has intelligence families and roles with campuses and natures of campuses like fire campuses and medical campuses in ways that most people don't realize and didn't realize. Because before our founders were born, here, Russia, China, already the human value nature system names A through Z. They had been forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded to defend themselves, uses of themselves, syntactically, tactical ulterior from how nature had already shown needs for them to be used properly. See, suits and ties, counters and exceptions still has collusions if we examine. See, but mandated law is not followed offensively, originally and still, by people pretending others simultaneously. So we have to force this quality of fact human nature here. Little rap guy and friends are counter obfuscated slash counter hyper obfuscated. And this will be the deobfuscation of them. New York City, therefore, if the suburbs were designed for torture, extortion, in fact, cheaping nature, slavery of our founders, no, who had to counter extort the other founders, no, and who are only capable of it for three reasons. One being the Native Americans still trying to fight against themselves to do damage control, not fight against, syntactically, regardless if they were fighting each other or not, physically, syntactically. Nature was and is communicating for us to preserve and to communicate for education, for value/S. Other than an A through Z, formal voicings for that have convicted. How this has gotten to go away with is identities of logic reliant upon other identities of expertise. Now, where they come together, like with Hartford Hospital has on their campus the Institute of Living, founded in 1822, on the campus of Hartford Hospital in Hartford, Connecticut. It has roles before Trinity College, also in Hartford, Connecticut, not far from there, and with other child schools. There are people associated with the Mayanov House. People involved, for example, foreign and domestic, A through Z, with psychiatry, as tactically delusions wrought psychopaths. Where and how? The answers were already given by Sepp and Reeves in their communications with the people. For example, in the cartoon value nature system version of part of New York City, and where they are charged with cultivating the counter extortion of Hartford, Connecticut, and of New York City, relative to where and to how what is no joke and what is funny is and has been tactical terror from the psychopaths at all formal and other natures of communications locations. Otherwise, that body is sensed, even if that body is a majority of people, per method that is right here for us to discern. It is right here for us to blame. At countries A through Z together and to reveal injunctive reliefs, simultaneously not leaving separated proper treatments of positives and negatives tied to nuclear, let alone weaponized, let alone from that base and as it A through ties names uses for premises, collusions that have already been where the differences of names on all sides of criminal and of civil cases, the lawyers and the interbranch switching and forging names and putting fake things in databases roles too. These are people that were on the Ninth Circuit Court right next to the World Trade Center towers attacked and the night before it, with the names off the World Trade Center attack, off the spots next to it, and on and off both sides of the case in the Ninth Circuit Court, were proven after the attack, right before the attack in the Ninth Circuit Court, right next to the World Trade Center attack, the World Trade Center towers on 9/11. From inside the court, they had post-dated legal papers to use also the sense and sensibilities. For example, to use Jane Austen's phrase, before we come to her book, there are tactically juxtaposed distinct natures of organized crime and use slash of the differences of them and of the associated names, where and how the difference also between adults and kids was, is, being, and has been employed by the breaching method that employed black and white to mean other than they do. So it could function by means to discern anyone that's not entertaining or having entertained. Left it roles with self-valued roles, with left entrenched under the guise of medicine, under the guises of medicine, under the guises of healthcare, under guises of journalism, under guises of reasons why people have journalist license, or the value of that. No. So one of the things they agreed to about, there's going to be a lot of fighting when the entire cartoon human value nature system is extorted together. That's one thing we all are commonly with convictions like regarding the values, positive and negative, with ancient history, with modern histories. The nature of debate, because of the nature of this breaching method from off all locations, took sustained use /s of roles with its function, of its method of functioning, simultaneously a method of maintenance to it, but through ourselves, with difference, the differences of sophistication, the most sophisticated legal minds, and the ones not, the difference too, used remotely, distinctly as locations, areas, and states, individual voice, /s, or grouped ones, and how grouped, actually. See, nature uses how we are individuals of the species body, and has areas, ages, sexes, differences. Again, apart as its difference, as its hyper difference. Its hyper difference identity of relationship to itself and the value of that. Because any subject we come up with, no matter how finite, grouped or simultaneous, it has three identities of possession over all parts of that. Is why and how things are manifest. I tell best some ways boxing, the nature of debate though. So they won't let me, in other words, obviously, Judge Napolitano, for example, he's a judge that used to be an expert on Fox News, national / international. And now he has a YouTube channel called Judging Freedom with Judge Napolitano. And he has experts on the recent things in the news too, but with also experts from the intelligence community, from people associated with the intelligence community through time. See, but intelligence communities A through Z left out the relativity of relativity being, having been, what each subject is about, for example, and where and how. Theories on relativity and the value of if someone read Einstein's theory of relativity or not, for example, and simultaneously how or why they did or didn't read that. In other words, relativity is the thing that we're supposed to debate, that we're obligated to debate. Actual relativity. See, people have been saying and behavior racketeering at locations before our founders were born. because there was a torture, simultaneous extortion, simultaneously factory nature slavery, and the difference of that use as a method that had already been sustained from since before modern religions messengers were even born. Not by accident, this was left out, where the debates of them have stayed associated with the human body killing itself from a base designed for torture, extortion, slavery in ways that are not even debatable. And if someone tries to debate them, which they do formally, the way they get away with it is because of the nature of collusions with all sides in criminal and civil cases and news at the same time. Overt criminal enterprises, private ones, insidiousness of the logic and the nature, therefore, of people A through Z, like regarding the value of voting, Black pupils. So they did a whole bunch of, I showed them, a little rap guy showed them in the cartoon value nature system. And they went out and people can't, in other words, clear as day. No matter what subject we're dealing with, the value of the fact that we have Black pupils, white survive. And we've had the nature of presentation to ourselves of American history that we have had. Sickly distinctly, but sickly non-distinctly too. A through Z. There are affronts to this. And the differences between them being foreign or being our own at countries A through Z. No patriotism nature has been real. We would have answered the questions. What is witch trials about? What are Jim Crow laws about? This is about the breaching methods, torture, extortion, slavery method, and blame other things, others, ourselves for uses of that further that we'll examine, or that body is sensed, even if that body is a majority of people, Black pupils. The Civil War was about where and how our founders were factory nature tortured, extorted, and enslaved, and found the only means to do damage control against that, with a hope to overcome it someday through others, to be means to counter extort and make people break the rules at 13 locations where the extortion method, the torture method, the slavery method was through our own, and that's sustained already. It propagated fact, human nature, quality aspects in nature's relatives when no one had time to appreciate it. And or that body was sensitive, that body's a majority of people, Black people. Who reads what statue, where, how, why. Be trial, tried. So in other words, we have to have the re-education of the people A through Z, and the difference. We have to be led by the hyper invisible, but still discernible. Thank God, all sides, all different of difference, like overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and the courts with them at the same time as collusions with uses of locations. And, this would happen on the campus. We're surveilling this. They're hiding what came first. There are people from the grades I went before I even went to the school I went from first to sixth grade, involved with names and from other classes with that campus, involved attaching me and them to other fake words with each other, fake ties to each other, by people involved with the World Trade Center attack, by people involved with their roles with a whole bunch of different countries in ways that are relative because they were here since before our founders were born, using difference, no, black pupils. This breaching method employed natural differences to mean other. It employed, therefore, syntactical impositions, communicative impositions, and possessions on people A through Z. Where the difference of that, too, has nothing to do with all the things that have nothing to do with it, but now they have to do with it. Specifically, so the nature of debate stays and counters to all that negative value, nature, progressions, acts, and nature that are only capable of increasing before cars were even invented, let alone cranes, means to transverse the earth, means to agree, to together. You know how nature shows us if we could access the species volumes, might, strength, might, but only, I mean, it will, make things worse unless we do it being led by its method. So obviously, the time shows that the people who could transverse the earth, they still have collusions with each age of fact tribute nature's campuses. But it's also before this, it was from off those campuses. And before this, it was also all database locations, ties. And then it became further where the sciences are. So in that sequence physically, they could measure and maintain functionally, everyone leaving out too, how the breaching method was there first. Not just metaphysically, not just nature, identity, the four names A through Z, database relativity, then further where and how the sciences are manifest. So between the campuses, they have been building upon phenomenon manifest per where and how. It was his timed collusions with the difference of all different, a whole bunch of different countries. Because where and how people like Institute of Living has people of a whole bunch of different cultures and sexual and family differences as roles with judges and prosecutors and their family members also. Typing fake transcripts and fake ties and fake natures of ties to people. Timed collusions with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, unions, and at campuses, where and how are manifest are things relative to where and to how. For example, there's an Emmett, there's a superintendent Emmett with Weathersfield Schools, and are people with whiting forensics involved with foreign and domestic military, associated with the names like Cololo, Colello, and Mendez, Mendez. And they're involved. There's a Phil Cololo involved with Bob Chase with whiting forensics, also involved with the UN, with drugs and medicines, crimes with kids, and with the witness protection program, and a child offender principal, and other principals and deans of kids that have stayed them, certain type of victim predator, hyper predator, where they speak for law, nature of debate, the value of what came first, or the value of what came first. Because it's collusions from the youngest ages, don't forget. And these are other people putting the fake transcripts in and then orchestrating the fake motivations out. But they're also being and haven't been used remotely themselves. For example, that's when you have the nature of the debate regarding what they call, legitimate, regarding how Fox News just had recently. They reported that the Constitutional Convention, there was narratives about a window being open or closed. And now see nature debate regarding the relativity of that. they're measured and maintained with all the subject treatments, leaving out the value, only increasingly valuable to reason, to understanding. Therefore, in other words, way more of how our founders had to counter or extort the other founders, how they were capable of it, because the laws were the syntactical possession of everyone, and they were nature of rules and of posture and mannerisms as criminal insidiousness slash hypercriminal insidiousness. They were criminally foreign influence slash hypercriminally foreign influence. Tactically, effectively, to keep descriptions of it where and how at other countries they already employed people reliant upon other things others themselves blamed for negative value nature progressions action natures there. So they would sense that and perceive things as prejudice. All sides, reason shows all sides guilty, suits and ties, counters and exceptions. Speaking with passions and emotions, you guys are using them as systems, tactical, ulterior for them what they are about. They're about to discern. Are we using nature's system that doesn't leave out the smallest finite detail? Or is it, in other words, is someone describing your emotions or passions to leave out details or the value of what came first? Because that's increasingly happening to everyone. And everyone's blaming other things, others are, and or they're blaming other things, others themselves. And or that body is sensed, even if that body is individual, even if that body is a group of countries. These are groupings, tactical terror from how and what nature employed our difference slash S, A through Z. And then this became criminally foreign influence slash hypercriminally foreign influence per method. So little rap guy and friends, with the counter extortion, it's to liberate the cartoon value nature systems, hyper additional means as humanity, but not as humanity, but any way, hyper additionally, cartoon value nature system. We could pantheism slash hyper pantheism is more probably having been about the identity of the hyper simultaneous. This method of how nature answers our questions by what is constantly true by its relative to its identity of relativity to itself. It is the hyper invisible distinctly from the invisible but still discernible parts of speech, parts of English, all parts of it individually grouped together. And they have relativity this way. Many all have missed because they have kept the names of the sciences from off campuses, forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded to value them also having been from off those locations, including from off the locations of homeschooled people. The differences of that, where and how each age of correlation nature has and has had other communicated to themselves by nature than the formal voices of nature have communicated to them. Otherwise, that body was sensed. We have means before we are in third grade to discern and to communicate about how the identities of the branches of government and of, the people that we see in life, we saw in the media, like distinctly when we were young, than from how the people are young now. Because vertically and horizontally too, this preaching method is multi-frontically distinctly against each age of attribute nature to measure and maintain functionally self-valued natures of logic and reason roles, or that body is sensitive, even if it's a majority of people. Have you seen the elderly homes, the little spots, and how think about it? In other words, we could learn a lot from New York City design to make space means available. This thing opens up. This, you know what I mean? But we could do things better than free. At the same time, when where there's all kinds of pilfering, there's even the lawyers with Hartford Hospital involved with wire crime acts and methods, and digital with digital child offenders, and they have women judges roles because of the whole distinctly from the men judges, and how they have criminally foreign influence readings of statutes. There is a YouTube channel, I believe it's called. It's associated with the name Peruta. And I don't know that, but there's Weathersfield fire departments and Hartford fire departments and people associated with fire department campuses who have been planting evidences on all sides of my house with as roles with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and names from a whole bunch of different countries associated with people at Central Connecticut State University and Central Connecticut State University, Trinity College, and Central Connecticut University that recorded that they were influenced by people that were my age growing up that I never had anything to do with, like when I was in high school and other grades, and all exceptions still. They're trying to mix that in there. And these are people involved with that. Those exceptions are people involved with wire crimes and putting fake predicate acts with facts with children's databases, child abuses of mixed natures of organized crime, the rules with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and pretending it's legitimately where they have unmarked police forms and police forms switching names. They're not legitimately with unmarked police forms associated with people with the name Cololo and those places next to Fox Connecticut News and WFSB, also associated with the name Fienza, and people on off town Two Ride Highway and Hangdog Lane in their conjunctions has something to do with people attaching little kids and everyone around them to faked and changed words and ties to other pictures of ties to other people as people who also have roles with all sides in criminal and civil cases in the interbranch at the same time, putting fake things in databases with the news at the same time to prevent people from speaking, as people who did this at the Ninth Circuit Court right next to the World Trade Center towers. So mandated law is not followed, and they have the locations, areas, and states, all kind of experts and jobs in the law, and involved with those readings of statutes specifically for that. So people with the name Peruta involved with, I believe it's called summary judgment, they're also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with people from my sixth grade class who have been lying to people in my sixth grade class about me, and then through them and with the news when I caught them with a principal child abuser. These are also people that were involved with abuses of a principal of the daughter of a principal when I was there, and I've asked people who are putting predicate acts in databases, people increasingly tied to Weathersfield mayors, like a Mayor Gold and ones before him. They're also increasingly involved as names on off the Weathersfield at Board of Education building and the building next to it. As names involved with the name Scalora and cousins of theirs, which Cololos also said that was a cousin of theirs, and Demoro. And they were the ones with their teachers putting me to fake ties and fake natures of ties to other kids and fake motivations for it in databases and with the news at the same time. And as their roles with all kinds of falsified police reports. I caught them with their kids. There are police forms with the name O'Neill, also with West Hartford campuses and fire departments. And there's a park and people with medical tied to and medicines crimes tied to and evidences crimes, child abuses, identity thefts and frauds, with the mayor tied to Joseph Dennis and Eric Burgess. Eric Burgess is one of the ones involved with former Mayor a former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and co-defendants of his, and family members of judges and prosecutors involved planting evidences also with Dean Judd's family. And I think they lie about themselves and others. And then they have people taking a picture around people, pretend we had communications when there were none. The only communications were them. And they lied about what came first. These are people before the World Trade Center attack, involved with the depositions also of former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and his co-defendants, and their roles planting evidences intercities with Hartford courts and the Britain courts, and people associated with Connecticut District Court that were ones involved with international business in all these different countries on Central Connecticut State University, involved with them increasingly with overt criminal enterprises and names, even on Facebook, involved with predicate acts with them, wrongdoing with them, federal evidences, identity thefts and fraud, slanders crimes. So they have rolls of readings of statutes that give all different kinds of ways, criminally foreign influence, and uses of them that are, again, also singularly used. So black pupils, we have means to discern readings of statutes, criminally foreign influence that left out exceptions and exception nature. So we're going to have to know that we have inalienable rights, like an alien. You can't make them push them away. But see, they have done this. We know this, black people. Well, they were told to do other. We know this too. So there's a quality of fact, tribute nature that is prevented at all locations /s. Sickly distinctly from the quality of fact, tribute nature that is forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded, only having been known. Also, technically, delusions not wrought at the formal law, reception, or communication locations, diffusion locations, ill, breached. Not one has teach vaccines. Not one has taught. Vaccine is fought, but by the rules, but they are abridged. So unabridged, to get ourselves unabridged, to get the human fact, human nature unabridged, we must appreciate that phrase and how the breaching method knew. And then distinctly now still keeps blaming on other things. Oh, it's blame it on England or blame it on, even when that's right. In other words, you have to blame it on they were already possessed by it. Same thing that we are now. A through Z. Countries A through Z. You think anyone spoke about being able to transverse their names A through Z? Left out how we're, in other words, individually grouped in together. They are extorted, faked possession of their names. Certain type of victim / hyper victim. We could admit this and make conjunctive reliefs. And this will enable, this is right where and how the humanity needs. Is designed tactically to nature to need food from other locations. Not just the quality of fact, the differences used to keep, or to be practical, let's just call it deep state. Now everyone's using what was used to measure and maintain since before they came up with the phrase deep state with past reliance upon the information of agencies already still a collusion, black pupils. When did an agency have integrity to speak for the law? To speak for what? Really went down. Before any kids are sent to jail. In other words, a bunch of people who want to speak for adult or integrity before it's had. this breaching method employed that at countries A through Z. Forgiveness is so we don't leave out the breaching method, and we show we use what's also recorded conscious uses of overt criminal enterprises, private ones, a long time. The intelligence community, the difference between them and the interbranch, sending people to prisons that have always already been themselves roles with campuses. Central Connecticut State University trains people with the intelligence community, all kinds of capacities tied to computers. They have roles with professional companies, internet stock market companies, values, narratives by, oh, this is going to cause a blah. Get down. Don't get, foul mandate law. World Trade Center, WFSB attached me a fake conversations with them about the World Trade Center attack with roles, they have roles through time with people next to their building, putting fake things in databases, lying to teachers about other kids behind their back. Has something to do with their roles with the World Trade Center and their roles on off the state judicial branch offices and its conjunctions, on off the state corrections offices and its conjunctions. So, Judge Napolitano on Judging Freedom YouTube channel, he said in one of his videos he had 400 when he first started to be a judge in New Jersey. He had 400 arraignments in one day. That means just the person was arrested and they're come before the court. See, they're leaving out how the names of those locations and their difference has been used by the programming method. And it's sensory through ourselves. That which these things are about, these negative things like slavery and like Jim Crow laws, they're about the hyper positive, that and how our founders left us to use those great evidences to show that the Constitution is still abridged. There's an underlying, deeper than the foundation of the criminally re-engineered form of the republic for which we stand as an evolution from the foundation of other criminally re-engineered forms of the republic for which we stand, and the exceptions, because the republic for which we stand, as it was actually supposed to be revealed and repaired to, it worked with exceptions and exception nature. They valued the differences of the other languages. They valued the differences between color so you could discern. Same reason emotions. We're supposed to be taught that emotions are descriptions of our own emotions or of others. They can be and were and are and used by other bodies involved with our communications with ourselves, or by ourselves to leave out and make up finite details, but so we could sense it. But rather than sense it, people are staying roles with the tricks. Oh, that's their motivation. They're mad because you're leaving out. You guys are making up, you're planting evidence increasingly. All investigators, their campuses never stop being used criminally for an influence. Forgiveness is because of how and why. That was to be stayed collusions with worse at other locations /S. And then to have demonstrations of that kept on other things, because now it has the identities of the locations collusions. So it keeps from off campuses collusions where, for example, identities like the FBI have more roles with different natures of abuses of children and the differences of that uses, where they have identity theft, fraud, slander role. They have whole careers. Then they want to debate because they have money values. They have readings of statutes they can't get away with legitimately. So they took collusions with all sides of criminal and civil cases. In other words, they're people speaking for the law. So there are the lawyers of the FBI, as a Robert Chevrolet. He's involved with a whole bunch of people next to his law office from Weathersfield who are involved intercities, planting evidences through time, identity theft, fraud, slander. And these are people involved with conversations with the intelligence community, with the schools, where they're attaching kids and everyone around them and their neighbors to fake communication. These are predicate acts against facts, against everyone and the people that are responding to it. And they want to have nature debate about it and make it look like then it looks like we had communication we never did. That's part of the way they're getting away with it. They're making self-value roles with that because people want to rely on the legitimacy of people they know with the law, or of where and how they know the law doesn't have legitimacy. Because we all have black pupils, we know the law is a bunch of fake, a bunch of ways. See, but everyone blamed the other things, others themselves. Then that's collusion. And now, increasingly, that's collusion because they made connections between this. So they know the kids are going to look away from all the ways. The judges and the prosecutors and the police forms, police chiefs from Weathersfield retired, have roles with the name Cololo in a field across the street from my house, involved with a whole bunch of judges and prosecutors and the FBI and Weathersfield police and mayors from Weathersfield who have been spreading lies and rumors and planting evidences on Trinity College with the names on my street involved with wire crimes with Weathersfield police switching names. Then they pretend it's personal, get them on paper, and then they lie about people's behavior and their motivations for it because they're hiding what came first. And then they sustain that, and that's one of the ways they get away with it. They make people need to yell or something like that. You know, I can show you how I recorded this, not trying to. They recorded themselves because I caught them collusion intercities with people from intercities who are planting evidences and influence to it on my street in confessions roles. These are people also involved with conversations with priests. The church uses confessions distinctly from the government, but distinctly from and overt criminal enterprise, but in news and things like that, but distinctly also from the breaching method, which uses confessions. Because you guys are either roles, blaming other things, those are yourselves, for things our founders told us to blame on the breaching method. They communicated for us, common sense demonstrated to us. Blame the abridgments on the breaching method. Don't leave out from our syntax nature how it was attached to a breaching method that was measuring and maintaining the sense and sensibilities, to use Jane Austen's phrase. In other words, because this is about the human volume science. And again, it is about how it is employed. Names A through Z, tactical systems, tactical terror. You can't leave out how and why. How the exploitation of the human value/value progression is attached to reports of humanity killing itself at straits, like with the Red Sea, with pirates, etc. In other words, we had the means to transverse the earth. The suburbs were still designed since before our founders were born. See, we fight by the rules, but they stay abridged. And then, in other words, when we fight, we're as factory nature, evolution, fruits and gifts, means out of nowhere come, methods of it, and checking to make sure it stays that way, or else we sense. So we have to put a hyper transparency. And, like a third market but it has to be agreements and understanding and a method. Slash S, just stacking means on that one method. That is nature's method. If we, the countries with crazy weapons, and as our parts, A through Z, you guys are caught red, dead cold, ill with logic, fake, and pretending others simultaneously. And how you get away with it kept manifest. Some sick, fake experts on reason, black pupils. And you're going to use words like war crimes and genocide. You guys are still collusions, though. You need to use words like conjunctive relief. No, in other words, black people. And please, in other words, any country with a military like that should be able to beg. In other words, and if they don't understand the significance of having black, in other words, all that I've noted, they have to be educated. We just have to allow free speech. See, the intelligence community is discrediting, has discredited good information. How they got away with this is relative to how before they took oaths, they had roles with predicate acts with facts. So we're going to observe how we could observe nature showing us that assigning black and white to mean other than they do, exceptions to mean other than they is a predicate acts with facts method /S. Hyper additionally with other methods, motivations, natures, needs, interests, also consciously used by the method to keep itself left out as deeper than the foundation of any state, as deeper than the foundation of a northern intelligence or of a southern. This is fluent through all sides as nations each. Someone must teach, see, preach, see, Romulus as science here. Return. Republics means one way redeems. Bach sings, I teach us things belong to all to repent. Yes, come home. Campus Marcia's calls to each in turn. Etc. Please follow mandatory law. As I'll show you how. No, we can only follow mandatory law for ourselves, but they have recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed how they have names next to the campuses involved, influenced to spread lies and rumors and plant fake news. WTNH has roles with digital fake emails with Wethersfield Police and FBI at locations next to them and other with the wild federal interstate, criminally foreign influence since their inception. They have roles on digital crimes with digital sex offenders associated with Joshua Julian, further involved with judges and police chiefs with child offenders in my area, and on off the principal child abuser's school. And he's got neighbors like a Mark Violet and a Mike Violet. I never had a conversation with Mike Violet, and they have roles with foreign and domestic military next to the state capitol and on and off Hartford Hospital's Institute of Living, and people associated with the garage, etc., and the building market they used to be there, and their roles with the other countries and cultures. These are people with intercultural and intersexual differences, intelligence families, foreign and domestic as collusions, at the same time with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and news predicate acts with facts, all sides of criminal and civil cases. Police forms attaching and their family members attaching little kids to fake conversations with themselves, and then as adults, fake conversations with humanity that our police forms have been pretending. They have something to do with their roles with all these different countries. There are people associated with Taekwondo places, also with the police forms, with the FBI, and people with the name tomorrow, with the wire crimes of Wethersfield Police, with child offenders, sexual and medical, with little kids, attaching kids, lying to their teachers about them. I never had a class with Joe tomorrow. He was in one time I saw him in a fifth grade class. That's it. with a Mr. Pruzzi. Never had a personal conversation with Mr. Pruzzi. The only time when he told me to do a maze from Joe DeMora, they're increasingly roles with a kid with my fourth grade class with the body don't be spot of Billy Grasso and neighbors of his associated with it. Now, with the name Fiennes, also on Facebook, confirmed involved with the South Seville and his family members, adults and kids. We're in how uses of those words, adults and kids. These are also people with elderly homes that are involved with sick uses of elderly and of their roles with next to the locations and next to the veteran locations. Know how the veteran locations are manifest the way the buildings in New York City are manifest, the only way the breaching method allowed to unfold, so it could measure and maintain and measure and sense who's going to do damage control, who's going to call it out, and then adapt to that. Black pupils, not science with integrity spoke. Forgiveness is to say this not with convictions of great people who are teachers. And there are not to say against the people who are evil too, because this is why and how. Forgiveness is to not leave out the breaching method. Forgiveness is to not leave out the reliefs relative to most critically to this. So there's a certain type of torture, extortion, slander method /s, and denials of it. That little rap guy recorded and showed them, but they don't know it's him. That has the whole species. They even have, because England doesn't even remember their own history of English. So that in this cartoon value nature, they have them, believing that there's an English agency and they're trying to save the identity of England. But they can't sell Wu Shao is one of them. And it's like with China, the same thing. So how come when Mao's name is brought up, this is why we're not supposed to put my words in Mao's mouth, probably, and demonstrably, because how come they leave out when James Madison's name is left out, when brought up, when Mao's name is brought up? They left out how names A through Z were already having been used as systems tactical ulterior from how nature employed names A through Z to be used and described by reason. Vaccine. I teach those things. So, in other words, follow mandated law. World Trade Center has roles with a whole bunch of people who had conversations with the military with the names Oliveri and people with state police associated with the names Olson. I don't know Eric Olson, Matt Olson, and they have people with Trinity College. The FBI influenced to spread lies about me and fake ties and natures of ties to me with my teachers and people I never had classes with. I never saw around. They tried to make a fake exception. One time real fast in the class, I didn't even know who he was. So it has something to do all along the Berlin Turnpike and all along Route 3 and its conjunctions, like the state judicial branch offices, on and off the state corrections offices. Note the word corrections. These are people involved with the journalist locations and their family members and sources, planting predicate acts with facts with child offenders and other natures of abuses or of elderly, of uses, criminally foreign influence uses of veterans locations, the identities of veterans. Eric Burge is one of the people, a whole bunch of people tied to New Britain Superior Court and Hartford courts have people that grew up lying about themselves and others, like Joe DeMora and Kerr brothers and family. They're also involved with the conversations with the mayors and the leaders of the kids further They're trying, and the predicate acts against their own kids. But then they want to make it about conversations with us. I never had to. You guys are confessing these things to others. You have their neighbors involved. A whole bunch of people tied to with Jonathan Mayano and his conversation with his coaches and gym teachers involved with drugs crimes next to the schools, with families next to the schools. His roles with people on the Institute of Living, putting sequence shifts, identity theft, fraud, slanders, pretended legitimate unmarked police forms or what. I don't know if he's a police or what, but he's criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. Jonathan Mallon, he's got his family members involved with this. And there are people involved with all increasingly with the Elm Streets and with bakeries who have roles with uses of the departments consciously, individually grouped and together at Central Connecticut State University. So I don't even know all their names. And they have the deans and their family members involved. And then they got ones at Trinity College involved with a Joshua Stryker. I never had a verbal conversation with my life. They're trying to put fake ties to me, fake niches. They try to make one fake exception. They saw me out, in other words, at Eric Oliveri's house one time. They lied about that and pretended it was drinking and stuff like that. In other words, they're putting fake things. So, in other words, these are people on off the state judicial branch offices, not far from there, no, and people involved with the World Trade Center. And WFSB attached me to fake conversations with them and with others about the World Trade Center. They attached me to fake locations with themselves and with others. When I caught them at the same time with a principal child abuser, and they forced that with more then and now. There's a police chief, Cintron, and his lawyer, who is involved with the ones with the name Peruta. There are foreign and domestic Russian families involved with Hartford Hospital and fire campuses. People at the homes next to it, like Eric Burgess, and they have roles with the religious spots, like religious corruption, pretended religious people with judges and prosecutors and the Dean Judd and I don't know, male and female intelligence that know my name. I don't know their name. And with West Hartford locations, increasingly with the ones on my street and people tied to them have been roles with wire crimes and Weatherfield police, switching and forging names, planting evidences on all sides of my house, and doing sick things against those people's kids still. And we're right where we're and how people's sense and sensibilities are going to leave things out and make things up because they're increasingly just saying things at the end of investigations being used remotely. They're also putting fake transcripts into databases. These are increasingly people tied to a Leahy family that pretended through the mail they had conversations with me as doctors and their roles with various courts, judges, and prosecutors personally and professionally, criminally foreign influence, fake conversations with me about various natures of organized crime that they had roles with. And as their roles through time, attaching me to fake conversations about my family and legal cases and attaching them to fake conversations about me and legal, changing it too with the news too. Then preventing writing, interbranch switches names and forges names. These are Connecticut intelligence and interbranch families and roles with all sides in criminal and civil cases as the ones who were involved with the Ninth Circuit Court next to the World Trade Center in that context and sense. Before the World Trade Center attack, Eric Burgess and the other people with Hartford courts had effected requests for help from me. I didn't know all their names. One of them is former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, his co-defendants in a 2006 district court case, and their lawyer. And I'll name the sources on all sides and the their lawyers are involved also. So get them the heck on paper, one name in sequence, please. Follow mandated law. These are people who've been putting fake transcripts at the campuses, including with the leaders of the kids. There's a Mr. Emmett who put me in fake conversations with him. He's involved with the principal upskirt nature, the principal Jim Bean or whatever. Involved with also the Bean. There's a guy with the name Bean. There's intelligence people associated with Knott Street, and they're moving the street names around. Jordan Lane has something to do with it. Increasingly, people at Hartford Hospital have been lying about themselves and others through time and into databases. As people that didn't have classes with me who were putting things and fake things in databases, increasingly they came on my street at different times, some of them too, because then that makes it look like the kids were a group. And some of mine were my age, I don't even know. I never saw them. I don't even know what campus they went to. And these are people involved with Afghan leaderships and kids. I don't know if the Wethersfield town offices and other election spots involved. So they're going to court. They're forcing court issues with intelligence. Like, for example, just the fact that they have the audacity to sue the computer companies. They're out of their mind. The databases since before computers were involved with the criminal reality there because you use it at other locations and or to use other locations to use there and the difference of that black pupils. So these are people involved with Facebook some ways, and then some ways that it was the FBI and the other police forms and the differences of that. There's an Ian further with upskirt pictures on Twitter and the transition from Twitter to X. They hide these things. They have roles with Central Connecticut State University. There are proofs that they have roles with the leadership of Facebook personally and professionally because that campus has roles with, even great people at all these campuses, UConn, MIT. They are involved with, everyone speaks to others. This is one of the things that is used to consolidate self-valued rules of predicate acts with facts, and therefore as nature, as criminal insidious nature. When you guys are in grammar schools, when you go before that, they're putting fake things, they're putting every truth for use for lies. Then they exploited it. And that's all recorded at once. They put a whole bunch of things. You can't get the people on paper because they're forcing the quality of fact, human nature, criminally foreign influence / hyper-criminally foreign influence, and use of that roles, because it's even worse. So all we have to do is have mandated law followed. We're going to observe all kinds of methods of predicate acts with facts, self-added roles with them, perpetrated on the kids of New York City, sickly distinctly from the kids of Wethersfield campuses and Rocky Hill campuses. Make sure you get them on paper. These are in police forms of the intelligence community. They're military also, military police foreign influence with this. Fix the fake World Trade Center attack conversations with me. And let's get them on paper. Let's go. Get off the roads and routes with people's names too. Planting evidences too. Watch. Oh, vaccine. I just think.